and I'm going to be reviewing the game of OpTic Gaming and CLG from week 2, day 1. The game was kind of interesting. I'm just going to be going to do a kind of a layman's terms in what I thought of the game, what I thought of the teams. Nothing too analytical or anything like that. It's kind of more of a fan's view. With OpTic Gaming versus CLG, it was actually a pretty good game. OpTic ended up kind of steamrolling over CLG, just from their team fighting, and I think just through kind of like their map play. There was a few instances that I'll go over that were really good for OpTic Gaming. But yeah, so in terms of the draft, one thing that stood out for me, just as a fan, I'm not an analyst, is basically with CLG picking the support Lux and with OpTic Gaming already having picked the Silas. Lux is coming out more as a support these days, but I don't know, I kind of found it strange to give. It can be a powerful ultimate, so why give it to a Silas? That was my only kind of critique. Funnily enough, it didn't happen very often, but I think if CLG were ahead, I definitely think it would have been a way for OpTic Gaming maybe to steal an objective here and there, like a Baron or a Dragon, just because Silas would have been building a lot more like a AP than the Lux would, so I was kind of confused by that. But that was pretty much it for the draft, except for maybe the Poppy. The Poppy turned out to be a really good pick for OpTic. I think the main thing was so that Poppy would stop Irelia from zipping through a team fight, and really being able to either knock her away or lock her down. So I thought that was a really good pick. And so yeah, in terms of the early game, there was a good catch onto like Power of Evil in the mid lane, but PoE, he got a good 3-man stun off to evade it, but he did lose his flash and he did have to TP back into lane. This is when I thought that OpTic would kind of punish the mid lane more than it did, and it actually kind of turned around the other way. Like there was no gank again onto mid lane. Realistically, within the next like 4.5 minutes or so, Power of Evil ended up getting a kill onto Crown. It was actually a really good kill. It was a really good recover by CLG, and it led into that 2v2 mid lane. It essentially was a 2v2. Wiggly was kind of a little bit later, but ended up making sure that Power of Evil did not get killed by Medios right after Crown went down. And then CLG transitioned that straight away into the new Sejuani was going top. Stixay or Bifrost called Wiggly straight down into the bottom lane because Arrow and Big were pushed up really far up, and they killed Big. And that was a really good start for them. That was short-lived, fairly short-lived. Straight away, Power of Evil TP's back to lane, and Crown just smacks him down with a solo kill. Just the difference in level in pro play is super important. It's not something to be scoffed at or to be ignored. It's something that Power of Evil should have seen and really didn't take it into consideration. And Silas was level 6, stole the ult, used it, killed him. Simple as that. That must have been crushing for CLG. For PoE to get a kill, especially after losing flash and TP on level 1, getting the kill back, TPing back to lane and just dying, and just after they got another kill. So they got the first 2 kills of the game and just threw one away. And it just that seemed to be the beginning of it. OpTic played really well throughout the game then. They played well as a team. Roughly about 12 minutes and something, there was a team fight in the mid lane. CLG even already had their bot lane roaming up to the mid lane. But by the time Bifrost got to the mid brush, Dokla had already completed his TP, and Arrow started his TP like 2 seconds after Dokla. Big was already roaming up, and the weirdest thing was Vlad was still just staying in lane with his TP up, and that confused the hell out of me. I get that you think it was going to be a bad matchup. Wiggly was nearly dead. So Wiggly had made a mistake in terms of it. What felt like a mistake, it probably there was probably nothing else much that you could possibly do, but ulting and getting basically trapped in a Jarvan ult where you're the Jarvan, you've got an Irelia beside you, and then there's a Silas in there as well. Silas is just going to be using his passive all the time and dealing damage, an insane amount of damage to both. Wiggly goes down, Dokla comes in, Biofrost is just at the mid lane brush, Dokla CC's up PoE, which in my opinion, PoE should have flashed out the second that Wiggly went down. The second that he goes down, Power Evil should have flashed out. Granted, he still may have died, but at least try and get out of there. But that just didn't happen, and then Biofrost gets caught out then as well straight away, and it just kind of showed the difference in terms of maybe either team mentality or communications between the two teams. For OpTic, like they were going all in, like nothing was stopping them from going all in. Like Arrow could have stayed and CS'd in the bot lane, maybe got a little bit of damage on the bot lane turret, but he was like going straight there as well. Same with Dokla. Gave up CS to go straight there. And it just kind of showed the mentality of if we're going in and we're going to back up our teammates. And I think that just isn't quite there yet for CLG. It's nearly there. And I think that's kind of why I think that CLG will turn things around. Not to say turn things around, because that would kind of suggest they're in a really bad place, and I don't think they are. I think they are a good, solid team that could definitely make playoffs, but they've definitely got to work on their teamwork more often. Or they've definitely got to work on their teamwork. Something they got to work on. And they're not the only ones, definitely, but I think with keeping 4 main players, you really should have that. But I guess OpTic do have the edge in terms of they've had no changes. So OpTic do really have that. The main other thing that I would want to press from this game is there was literally a section of about 45 seconds where OpTic dropped Herald mid lane. Silas was taking bot tier 1 tower. And mid lane turret was taken down. Granted, no one got the gold, but the turret still went down. Still an objective that you need to get. Granted, you don't get any like monetary gain from that, realistically. Silas gets the gold from bot lane turret, and while Crown is taking the bot lane turret, Meteos is taking the dragon, the mountain drake. Like, they're all doing that simultaneous. It's all going down at the same time, and that just goes to show that how much kind of control they had on the map in terms of the bot side. And I think for them, when you're able to do that and you have such a strong tank in terms of Poppy as well in your team, and you're just able to go topside and survive, farm, and not allow the Vlad to really pop off, that's really good for your team. And even after those 45 seconds, CLG replied with taking the top lane turret. But then Ruin tries to TP, kind of lazy, in a not so great spot. Gets caught out by the Poppy, by Dokla, and Meteos. And he goes down. And it's just, there's no rhythm in CLG. Something is going, either an objective of theirs is going down, or one of their teammates is going down. And they're not able to really react as a team. Whereas OpTic, it always feels like Meteos is in the right place. Again, I'm not an analyst, so I can't speak to pathing and everything like that. Can't delve into that. But Again, he's always in the right place at the right time. That's a really big strength. And Medios has been such a good jungler for so many years that I think at this stage it's probably just natural to him. Towards the end of the game, again, there was 2 more team fights. CLG lost heavily on both. And it really showed the disconnect between players. You have, like, so the first fight was in mid lane, the mid lane tier 2. Silas was keeping Aurelia off to the one side, and that was kind of like perfect for OpTic. So then you had Wiggly, you had Stixay and Bifrost kind of hovering around the tier 2 turret, and most of OpTic were to the red side, like of the tier 2 turret, and Sejuani in the middle, like in the mid lane. And all during this time, Ruin has been sitting in a bush for about a minute, doing nothing. He's waiting for the TP flank. And nothing, or he's just waiting for the flank. And nothing really allows him to do that because Medios gets stunned up near the turret. And then about a second later, just as the stun wears off, Wiggly decides to do the flag and drag and try and get him. Wiggly gets hooked, gets stunned up. Silas steals Aurelia's ult, and Aurelia is still being kept to one side. And that is massive. And all while Ruin is still waiting in the bush. Then Silas throws down the ult. Ruin is coming into the mid lane now at this stage. Chunks Bifrost down to about 10% health. And just evaporates Stixay. Stixay is just gone. He's just absolutely gone. And that's it over. And Ruin hasn't even gotten ability off. And again, I'm not saying that Ruin is really, really bad, but I'm just saying there is a disconnect there between the team. Maybe it is comms. Maybe there's no one who really has the I suppose the shot calling aspect of the game down to where they know what to do in that situation. Whereas in OpTic, you've got Medios. Medios really is super experienced, and Crown, from what I've seen from, I think it was in an episode of Oracle, it's their I suppose like OpTic's vision, but about League. Crown has been studying a lot of English, and he may be able to say in a very simple way of what to do in those kind of situations that CLG just don't have that yet, or CLG don't have a player like that. And OpTic definitely have one, but probably have 2 or 3. I don't know a whole lot about Big to say if he has that kind of aspect to him as well, but hey, they've definitely got 1, possible 2 or 3 players that can impact in terms of knowing what to do in those kind of situations and telling the team, but then most importantly, the team have the trust to go on those plays, to go on those calls. And CLG just don't seem to have that right now. So at the final fight of the game, Ruin finally is able to TP flank. But while the TP is going in, Poppy ults Aurelia straight away away from the fight completely. And then Poppy is there to completely soak up all the damage, and then they're able to just steamroll the rest of the fight because, Poppy's a tank, and if you're going to focus the Poppy, like, yeah, that's fair enough in some situations, but it's not going to work. So OpTic end the game with Dokla having 0 deaths, Medios having 0 deaths, and same with Arrow. OpTic just showed better team play, better map play. But CLG, in these pro games, that much of a difference can mean so much in terms of these, not having that big shot caller with a lot of experience. I don't think they have that. I don't think they have the team chemistry to back all of their plays 100%. OpTic looks strong so far at the start of the split. Again, this may all still be hinging on that they didn't make any changes. They have the same core from last split, and so really they do have an advantage in terms of that. So that's my fan view of OpTic versus CLG game. Definitely think it was a good game, very close, but OpTic ended up just kind of, I say close and OpTic steamrolling CLG, but it actually was pretty close for a good part of it in terms of gold anyway. And yeah, good luck.